My home was haunted by unbelievable voices during a terrifying invasion attempt. I never should have opened that door. The chill hit me like ice water splashing across my skin. I was just winding down after a long day, the sun setting in a haze of orange and pink outside my window. My usual routine was straightforward: a cup of tea, a book, and the familiar creak of the old floorboards beneath my feet. But then I heard Ida whisper. Soft, eerie, like someone was right behind me. I froze. The air felt thick, heavy with something unnameable. My heart pounded in a rhythm that felt too loud in the silence of my dimly lit living room. The shadows danced at the edges of my sight, almost like they were alive. I glanced towards the hallway, where the darkness pooled like spilled ink. Something wasn't right. My gut twisted and sent a jolt of fear down my spine. The whispers grew louder, unintelligible words that curled around my ears and sent chills down my arms. I walked toward the sound, slow and hesitant. Each step echoed like a drum in my ears. My fingers grazed the wall, rough and cold against my skin. Then, a sudden crash, a chair, it seemed, falling over in the next room. My breath hitched. I wasn't alone. With each passing second, the air felt thicker, pressing against my chest. I could almost taste the fear, metallic and bitter. Shadows deepened, clotting into a wall of darkness that made my skin crawl. I reached for the light switch, but it flickered and died just before I could press it. The whispers morphed, growing urgent, frantic. My sanity clawed at the edges, begging me to retreat, but a part of me wanted to know. What were they saying? Who was with me? Suddenly, the floorboards creaked behind me. I spun around. The shadows shifted, forming a vague figure in the dim light. My pulse raced, each beat loud and deafening in the silence. I was so close to panicking. My heart threatened to burst out of my chest as the figure loomed larger. I didn't want to breathe. I didn't want to scream. But as I stood frozen, it moved closer, the whispers intensifying into a cacophony of dread. And just like that, as if the universe decided I had suffered enough, the front door slammed shut with a deafening bang. I jumped, a scream lodged in my throat. What was happening? I needed to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. All I could manage was to stare into the abyss where the figure stood, breathing hard, waiting. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air was thick with desperation, stifling what little courage I had left. As the door slammed shut, the whispers crescendoed, a devastating harmony that clawed at my sanity. My heart thundered in my ears, each beat a countdown to an inevitable confrontation. I suddenly felt like an insect trapped in a web, ensnared by something far more powerful than myself. The figure in the shadows became clearer, though still indistinct, a frothing amalgamation of dread and despair. The whispers turned from frantic to venomous, each syllable laced with an energy that felt alive, slinking around my thoughts. Help us, you must remember, they seemed to plead, though the words slipped away like smoke. My instinct screamed for me to flee, but my body remained rooted, paralyzed by the terror that surrounded me. I could feel a cold, clammy breeze emanating from the figure, chilling my bones, making my breath hitch in my throat. As the darkness writhed, I caught glimpses of shapes within it, fingers reaching out, eyes wide and pleading, mouths agape in silent screams. Why are you here? I finally managed to croak out, my voice barely more than a whisper. The shadows surged forward, a wave of darkness that spilled across the floor, infecting every corner of the room. Suddenly, pain shot through me, a sharp prickling sensation that was visceral and real. I glanced down to find my ankle caught in an iron grip. Thick, black tendrils emerged from the dark, wrapping around me. I felt a cold pressure against my skin, a lifeless touch that made my stomach lurch. With feral fragility, I wrenched my foot free, stumbling back against the wall for support. The whispers turned into a low thrum of laughter, a maddening sound that seemed to mock my fear, and then, as if they had heard my silent question, the shadows shifted once more. The air felt electric, pregnant with a sinister promise, and the whispers transformed into one shimmering voice, louder than all the rest. "You should have never come here," it warned, a rich timbre that nearly vibrated through my bones. "You let them in, you opened the door. No." I gasped, pushing back against the wall, forcing myself to breathe through the overwhelming surge of panic. I didn't mean to, I didn't know. There was an eerie stillness. The figure loomed closer. I could make out a warped face, features distorting with malevolent intent. Its eyes, dark pools devoid of light, bore into mine as if peeling back the layers of my very being. My thoughts spiraled into chaos, an avalanche of memories I couldn't grasp mixed with regrets and fears I'd long buried. And then, with a sudden clarity, I remembered when I had first moved in, the whispers had begun, echoes of a time long past. I dismissed them then, convinced they belonged to the house settling or perhaps some trick of the wind. But now, they felt like ancient secrets clawing at my mind, demanding to be understood. "Who are you?" I yelled into the shadows, my voice shaky but louder than before. "What do you want from me?" "You're past," the voice sang back, rich with a cruel satisfaction. "We want to take it back," but just then, a violent surge of energy erupted from the depths of the darkness, throwing me off balance. I tumbled to the ground as the figure extended its hand, claws elongating, stretching toward me with terrifying speed. Every instinct heaved in protest as I pushed myself away, scrambling backward across the floor, where grimy floorboards splintered beneath my grasp that I could feel the cold breath of the otherworldly pressing against my neck. Then, a chilling realization washed over me. What if I was not meant to escape? What if the whispers I had heard all this time weren't just calls for help, but invitations to join them in their endless torment? In that moment of stark clarity, I saw them, the faces from the shadows morphing into familiar visages, people I had lost, their expressions tortured and bound by despair. Their mouths moved just as the shadows began to swallow muter, more desperate, and then, a sharp noise cut through the chaos. 3 loud knocks resonated against the front door. The echoes flared like gunshots, interrupting the dark power closing in on me. For an instant, the shadows receded, disoriented, retreating into a desperate shroud. "Help!" I screamed again, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Somebody help me!" The knocking persisted, louder and more urgent, slicing through the haze of dread that clung to me. But before I could fully turn my desperate gaze toward the door, the shadows surged forward anew, enveloping me. The faces faded, replaced by a cacophony of laughter and wails that threatened to drown me in darkness, and just as I felt the tendrils grasp me once more, the door swung open, casting a blinding light into the room. In that split second, I caught a glimpse of my savior, a figure standing outlined against the luminous doorway. But when my eyes adjusted, my heart sank as the familiar, cruel grin greeted me. The face I had thought was a solid refuge twisted, transformed into a wicked caricature that I had never forgotten, and the voicio, that voice sliced through me like barbed wire. "Did you miss me?" It crooned, as the shadows surged forward, hanging on my limbs and pulling me into a relentless darkness. My body ached as I collided with the floor, every nerve trembling with horror, but I was too far gone to feel pain. The voice had returned, smoother than silk yet sharp enough to prod at my fraying sanity. There she stood, the last person I hoped to see, and yet the one that wrapped herself around my every thought, Mia, my sister, her smile a wicked slash across the familiar softness of her features. "Why are you here?" I croaked, desperation tightening my throat as the shadows swept closer, a dark tide eager to recapture me. You can't be here." "Of course, I can." Her laughter echoed in the hollow spaces of the room, laced with something sinister. "You called me, remember? You opened the door wide for me to come back." I wanted to scream but froze instead, paralyzed by the sight of her. Memories flashed through my mind, her eyes gleaming with mischievous spark, our shared laughter while exploring abandoned places, but now that gleam was gone, replaced by the empty void that fluttered just behind her pupils. I thought of her last days, the darkness that surrounded her suffocating both her and me, but at this moment, she stood before me like a spectre reclaimed, a twisted reflection of the sister I loved. Stay away from me, I gasped, scrambling backward through the thin shadows on the floor as they writhed and twisted, hungry for any sense of warmth. You're not her. You're not my sister. Oh, but I am, she purred, her voice trailing like smoke in the air, mingling with the chaos spiraling around us. The shadows clutched at me like eager hands desperate to pull me into their embrace. I've always been here, waiting. And now, dear sibling, the time has come for us to be reunited, for you to remember what we truly are. Even my mind spun, teetering on the edge of clarity and madness as flashes of my past invaded my thoughts, a jarring whirl of rationality and horror. My sister had never really existed as I remembered. She became a replacement, devoured by the very darkness that now emanated from her. Flickering moments cascaded, unveiling the truth of my existence. The family dinners punctuated by her laughter were nothing more than echoes, leaving only traces on the fabric of reality. No! I shouted, squeezing my eyes shut in an attempt to block her out, to shield myself from the memories that fractured what little sanity I clung to. But a sharp, weighty pressure enveloped my chest, an anchor demanding I succumb to the loneliness of understanding. Why do you fight it? MIA's voice silkened, now slithering with seductive assurance. Embrace what you were meant to be. We are one, and this place is ours. The shadows fanned around me, slinking across the floorboards like serpents, some even reaching toward lingered memories, a moment shared in the garden, the warmth of shared secrets, all threatened to disintegrate before me, lost in the dreadful clutches of despair. Mia, please. I pleaded, tears streaming down my cheeks, pooling on the floor as droplets of sorrow mingled with the lingering darkness. I can save you. I can save us. The moment my words left my lips, her smile broadened, twisting with unfathomable delight. You don't need to save me, Rachel. You need to save yourself. Her eyes narrowed, gleaming like shards of broken glass, a hint of fervent madness flickering beyond the veneer of familiarity. Join me. We can reclaim what was lost. The shadows writhed, hiding dreadful shapes I couldn't bear to see. With an anguished yell, I scrambled to my feet, launching myself toward the blinding doorway. But as I plunged through the light, an unseen barrier slammed into my chest, sending me crashing backward into the waiting shadows. I gasped, choking on terror as I struggled in vain against the intertwining darkness clinging to me like a funeral shroud. Mia stared down at me, a predator enjoying the hunt. You must remember who you really are. She leaned closer, the voices from the shadows swirling excitedly, each echo threading into a cacophony of intent, calculating, suffocating. Trust us. Just as the shadows bore down upon me, their grip threatening to seep into my very soul, a sharp crack of thunder erupted outside, sending shock waves rippling through the house. The world warped momentarily, the wind howled as if it were tasting blood. The oppressive dark suddenly shrieked and recoiled, as though the house itself was alive and in pain. The door shook violently against the frame, rattling the very walls that held the horrors at bay. An unexpected flicker of hope ignited like a flame alerted to a breeze. Perhaps help was truly at hand, but as I turned to face my sister, her expression shifted, morphing into something horrific, her mouth stretching wide, teeth sharpening, and laughter erupting like a monstrous symphony. They can't help you. No one can. And before I could scream, before I could run, she lunged for me, shadows spiraling in her wake. The ceiling above cracked, and as the walls seemed to swallow the sound of my pleas, I realized, with bone-deep dread, that I was not the only one who had been waiting for this moment. Outside, the sound of urgent banging continued, far more than just an attempt to save me. Something ancient and vile was waking, and it was coming for us all. I staggered back, my heart pounding furiously against the tight confines of my chest as Mia charged toward me, her form shifting between the familiar and the grotesque. The laughter that echoed in the cavernous room twisted into something agonizing, reverberating in my skull like a haunting bell tolling for my demise. Please. I choked out, my words soaked in desperation as I pressed against the wall, the coldness of the surface seeping through my clothes like the chill of a grave. Mia, I know you're still in there." Her visage faltered for just a moment, the relentless shadows holding her washed-out face in their clutches, but the tremor of humanity vanished as quickly as it appeared. "There's nothing of her left," she hissed, her voice plunging into a deeper register, guttural and wet. The very air thickened with dread, wrapping around me tighter as I realized that the darkness was coiling not just around her, but around everything, a sentient wave seeking to consume my body and soul. The pounding from outside grew frantic, each beat like the ominous presence clawing at the threshold of my reality, as if the house itself was caught in a titanic struggle against the rising dark. The window panes rattled, and I could see shadows moving in the stormy resplendence beyond, the glass shapes lengthening and twisting with grotesque urgency. Just as these thoughts raced through my mind, Mia lunged with an inhuman speed, a blurring flurry woven into the fabric of her transformation. "You can't escape who you are. You call us monsters, but we embrace the truth." I sidestepped, my body moving reflexively as I ducked under her outstretched hands. But the shadows that pervaded the room moved faster, snaking around my ankles and pulling me to the ground, knocking the wind from my lungs. Amidst the dark panic rising in my chest, I couldn't help but wonder what my sister had become. I had known the light of her existence, the fragments of joy we had cherished. And yet here she was, caring only for the embrace of despair, welcoming the void that had swallowed her. I could feel the aberration clawing at my mind, at landmarks of emotion previously cherished, now threatening to collapse under the weight of her hungry, harrowing desires. "Don't struggle," she crooned, her voice dripping with insidious sweetness that clashed violently with her sharp teeth and sunken gaze. "It'll only hurt more. Join us, let the past fade away. We'll show you pleasure beyond your wildest nightmares." Suddenly, the pounding outside escalated into a violent crescendo, a torrent crashing against the door as if the very fabric of the world was caving in. I glanced toward the entrance just in time to see the wood splinter. A foreboding growl resonated from beyond, the rumble vibrating through the floors, spreading panic rather than hope. "Help!" I screamed, wild with desperation, the word escaping like a mantra as I struggled against the consuming darkness. "Someone, please," but no one answered. The shadows writhed around me, hungry to swallow my voice, leeching my strength and sanity. I could feel them burrowing into my skin, probing through memories, searching for the essence of me that had persisted despite the growing terror. The world began to warp, revealing hazy hints of fractures that had run through it long before my torment began. "Foolish girl," Mia snarled, her features contorting further, a silhouette of everything I had once adored twisted into an unrecognizable horror. "You should embrace it. You're the key, the vessel through which we will awaken." As if on cue, a horrific roar erupted from outside, a monstrous sound far beyond my understanding. The door shuddered violently, splintering even further, and my stomach knotted in a swirl of fear and instinct. Where was the call for help now? The last memory of light flickering in the chaos struck me. During our childhood, whispers had crossed our house, familiar inexplicable warnings, but I had brushed them aside as the silly ramblings of peasants wary of shadows. Perhaps if I had listened then, if I had sought the truth instead of recoiling. I let panic seep in, carving a gateway within me until I frantically searched for a way out, a plan to resist the merging darkness. "No!" I shrieked, just as the door blew inward with a shattering roar, peppering the air with wood shavings and dust. Beyond it lay a nightmare, a heaving mass of shifting shadows and grotesque figures, half dragged into existence by the maelstrom ripping at our home. They whispered to one another, a segmented cacophony that felt alive and dangerously aware. "Join us," they murmured seductively. In that chilling instant, my gaze locked with Mia's, her smile twisting into an abyss of malevolence. The shadows enveloped her like a shroud, and she extended her clawed fingers toward me, beckoning. The terrifying thought flared, I might not be able to save anyone, but I must survive or become something far worse. And there, in the whirlpool of darkness, the grotesque figures behind her surged forward, eager to claim me, their jagged mouths stretching wider with each step they took. My heart thundered in reckless rhythm as all was drawn into the opaque pull of a surreal abyss where night had become the master, and I merely a pawn. As I retreated against the wall, feeling the coldness creeping into my skin and mind, I knew I had to decide in that heartbeat fight against the encroaching tide or surrender to it. The shadows hadn't just come for my sister, they were coming for all of us. With one last instinctual scream clawing at my throat, I turned to run, but as I surged toward the window, the ground beneath me quaked, and the lights flickered ominously. In that moment of terrifying clarity, I realized something in the depths of the room had awakened. Something waiting, a presence far older than I could ever fathom, and it was hungry for my despair, and just before the darkness consumed everything around me, something twisted and bone-chilling leapt into view, and I screamed, utterly unprepared for the true horror that was about to break through the veil. My heart raced as I instinctively pivoted in a desperate attempt to escape from the swelling mass surrounding me. Yet, the shadows surged like a tide, hungry and relentless. Just as I reached the window, the oppressive darkness coalesced and formed a shape grotesque, half-formed creature dripping with an abyssal gloom that clung to its sinewy limbs like wet smoke. It rose slowly, towering over me, its face an ever-shifting mask of agony and ecstasy twisted into a chilling grin that seemed too large, too wide for any living being. Chained by horror, I could barely breathe as I watched it stretch with sinewy grace, tendrils of inky black energy slithering from its core, reaching toward me with a malevolence that echoed through the very walls of the house. "Your sister longs for you," the creature intoned, its voice a nightmarish melody dripping with deep resonance. "She is merely a vessel, just as you will be. You cannot escape this calling." The world around me began to contort, every surface melted into a distorted reflection of reality. I could hear the distant whispers grow louder, merging into a tormenting chorus that clawed at my mind, blurring the lines between my memories and this tainted reality. I saw flashes of Mia laughing, her spirit untainted, her eyes shimmering with life, but they flickered in and out, drowned beneath the weight of the shadows that wrapped around my thoughts like a vice. "Come to us." The figures behind Mia cried, their voices layered and echoing, a cacophony that chilled my very bones. "We can free you from suffering. Accept your fate." The creature advanced, and I stumbled back, tears streaming down my face. I could feel the oppressive warmth of the shadows. They coiled around my arms and legs, binding me in their thrall, whispering lies of freedom and ecstasy just beyond the veil, seduction laced with pain. With a primal scream, I lashed out, kicking wildly, a surge of adrenaline pushing me against the window in a frantic attempt to escape the inevitable. The pane rattled, sunlight struggled to seep through cracks in the suffocating gloom, but the dark was relentless, its whispers clawing at my sanity. "Fool!" The creature snarled, and in that moment, the shadows flared outward, and I was enveloped in their embrace, suffocating beneath the weight of their promises. "You belong to the dark now." Just then, time warped, a snapshot of memory surged forward, unbidden. I was with Mia, small, joyful, and playing hide and seek in the very room that now screamed of terror. The realization hit like a punch. I had put her into this cursed space, we had ignored the warnings whispered through our walls, the flickering lights were signs we brushed aside. And my ignorance had given rise to this nightmare. No. "You're lying!" I shouted, forcing my trembling limbs to move, to break free. "You don't own us. I will not become part of this wretched fate." In a last-ditch effort, I seized a rusty flower pot from the floor, the only object within grasp. Once again, I turned to face the horrors, my breath ragged and heavy. In a flash of reckless determination, I hurled the pot at the creature. It shattered against its shadowy form, sending shards flying like a shower of heartbreaking memories across the room. The creature shrieked, an infernal cry reverberating through the void. As a flicker of light broke through the gathering darkness, the tendrils recoiled, surprised. For a moment, the suffocating grip loosened. It was all I needed. I charged toward Mia, fighting against the encroaching dread, crying for her amidst the cacophony of despair. "Mia! It's me! Fight it! Remember us!" But as my words barely pierced the veil, the shadows writhed, entangled around her like vines, suppressing any flicker of the sister I once knew. I could see her eyes, briefly flickering with the spark of recognition, and in that fleeting moment, she reached for me. Hope breached through the darkness like a crack in an ancient dam. Yet, the moment was snatched away, replaced by an overwhelming shadow exploding from the depths of the house, a pulsing vortex of despair and rage. Every shadow and every twisted form combined, drawing backward like a tide retreating. I felt my feet lose their grip on the ground, the walls of the room began to twist and buckle, revealing a chasm of swirling darkness beneath a phantom floor. With one final, desperate cry, the creature lunged at me, and I surged forward, reaching out to Miami's sister, my friend. But I was met with a shattering pull as the ground gave way beneath my feet, my body yanked into the void, a swirling nightmare of terrified faces and familiar voices yelling in torment, and in that eternal moment of falling, I heard a whisper that was louder than the screams, a voice hauntingly familiar echoing through the chaos, "You should have never come back." The darkness consumed me. I plummeted through a vortex that seemed to stretch endlessly, the air thick with agonizing whispers that seeped into my mind like poison. Memories twisted and bent around me, a carousel of faces that blurred together, friends, family, and shadows of those once lost. I reached desperately for a handhold, anything to anchor me to the present, but the void slithered around me like serpentine fingers, stitching together my worst fears with threads of doubt. At some point, the fall ceased. I crashed against something hard, though it was neither ground nor wall. I lay in a state of disarray, crumpled on a surface that felt alive beneath me, pulsating softly as if breathing. The air smelled burnt and acrid, a metallic tang swirling in the space around me. I blinked, trying to regain my bearings, and as the tendrils of darkness ebbed around me, I found myself in a realm far removed from the last reality I had known. That I was ensconced within what seemed to be a vast, decaying attic, brightly illuminated by an eerie glow that came from nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. The walls were lined with memorabilia, boxes bursting with faded photographs, letters yellowing with age, and toys with cracked porcelain faces. Each object was ghostly and foreboding, saturated in the essence of lost times. The weight of dread pressed against my chest as I rose to my feet, every movement accompanied by a sense of wrongness. Isolated whispers echoed around me, fragmentary conversations from the past entwined with sinister laughter that clawed at my sanity. I stepped cautiously, feeling as though the floor itself was listening. The whispers intensified as I navigated through frayed memories encased in dust, each footfall like a heartbeat in the silence. A chilling breeze slithered past me, dragging my attention to an open window at the far end of the attic. Old shutters banged rhythmically against the frame, their persistent noise mingling with the whispers. "Help us!" they seemed to chant, a haunting requiem that throbbed in my ears. My instincts screamed to flee, but an urgency to uncover the truth anchored my feet to the ground, dragging me closer to the gaping maw of the window. Suddenly, a childhood laughter danced through the air, sharp and sudden. I froze, my heart seizing at the familiar sound. It was Mia. "Come play," the voice beckoned, rising and falling like a creeping mist beneath me. My stomach twisted, unease gnawing at my insides as I followed the whispers that spiraled through the unkempt space. Mia's laughter echoed behind me, but it wasn't just her voice. I sensed the presence of others. Each whisper combined into a haunting symphony of disembodied voices, all reaching for what lay beyond the veil. I stepped into the alluring gloom, intoxicated by the possibility of finding her amidst the cursed relics of our shared past. I brushed my fingers over a tattered family portrait, my heart aching as I caught a glimpse of us together as children, frozen in an innocent embrace. Yet the shadows twisted behind me, lurking, and as I began to turn, they coalesced. The animated shadows flickered like candle flames, morphing into despicable faces that snarled with the anger of the lost, each one a promise of pain yet to come. The laughter bubbled around me, bubbling like a grotesque parody of joy, and my breath hitched as terror rose anew. "Don't turn away," a voice wheezed, brittle and cold. "You have to make a choice." The shadows began to form a larger shape, rising from the ground like mist escaping a suffocating grave. I could see the creature within the darkness, a grotesque amalgamation of those I believed to be long gone, their eyes hollow voids of despair that raked across my soul. "Join us," they hissed, the words a writhing mass that leaked into my mind, distorting everything I had once known. "Or let her fade like us." "Where's Mia?" The question escaped my lips in a frantic whisper, desperation clawing at my throat. I felt my resolve beginning to splinter as images of her lively face bore down upon me, vivid against the encroaching dark. In the other room, the entity sneered, its voice dripping with intoxicating malice. "If you wish to save her, join us. One blood must feed the darkness. Before I could grasp the weight of its words, the shadows erupted, swarming toward me like a ravenous tide. I stumbled back, searching wildly for an exit, but they were everywhere, slithering across the walls in a cacophony of anguished pleas. Suddenly, there was a deafening crash above, a startling interruption that sent vibrations through the floor. A large section of the ceiling plaster and wood splintered and fell around, revealing a portal of sheer blackness at the top. "Come to us," the shadows sang, a sinister chorus luring me into the abyss. I fought against the suffocating grasp of the darkness that threatened to swallow me whole as I screamed for Mia, but only chaos echoed back. In the distance, I could hear her voice wavering between laughter and cries for help, battling against the siren call of dark promises. In that moment of desperation and fear, I made my choice. I lunged toward the gaping maw of the dark, plunging into the unknown with a heart full of dread but a mind sharpened by love. Yet as I felt the dark close around me, the sound of a chilling giggle slithered through the chaos, too joyful, too unsettling, and I realized that the darkness was not only consuming me, it was animating something else. Mia's playful laughter echoed once more, and my blood ran cold. "Why did you take so long?" she taunted, a macabre echo drifting from the dark. And just like that, the shadows whispered into life, unveiling horrors that chilled me to the bone. The darkness engulfed me, a suffocating blanket that wrapped around my limbs, binding me to an unseen fate. At first, it was simply quiet, eerily tranquil in its embrace. My heart thudded violently in my chest, the only sound tethering me to the reality I had known only moments before. Yet, in the stillness, the giggle echoed again, Mia's laughter, but distorted, stretched like taffy until it morphed into something cruel. "Come find me," she whispered, a siren's call so infectious I felt it wrap around my mind, clouding my thoughts with desires I never acknowledged. Images of her filled my head, dancing freely in sunlight, spinning in joy as her hair caught the wind. "It's like a game." Instinctively, I recoiled, but the void shifted, a formless entity emerging like a storm cloud from the abyss. The shadows rippled and contorted, revealing glimpses of faces I recognized, each one screaming in torment. They twisted and writhed, their mouths moving in silent pleas as if begging me to understand, a million lost souls echoing the same truth. "Don't listen to her." A voice, hoarse and broken, cut through the cacophony, warping the laughter into a menacing snarl. "She's not the Mia you remember. She's one of them now." The realization struck me like a cold dagger. There, woven into the shadows, I saw the silhouette of a girl. Her face flickered momentarily, revealing solemn eyes that bore the weight of lost innocence. It wasn't Mia, at least, not the Mia I had known. I felt limbs crawl with terror, recognizing the gentle features that twisted into something grotesque, smiling wickedly back at me. "You left her behind," the shadows hissed, feeding off my horror. "You let her fall. No. I screamed, rallying against the doubt clawing at my heart. I couldn't, grasping for any fragment of hope. I thrust my hands forward, pushing against the mass surrounding me. "Mia. Just hang on." "I'm coming," the shadows rippled as if amused, swallowing my pleas in an avalanche of whispers. "You're too late," they mocked, their chorus swelling around me. "She's ours now. You've lost the game." The ground beneath me shuddered, pulsating like the heart of some monstrous titan awakened from a long slumber. Pain surged through my body, and I remained trapped in their malevolent grip. I could feel them reaching into the labyrinth of my mind, unearthing old memories, each one twisted, each one etched in blood. Faces of family, all those I had lost coursed through my thoughts, resonating with accusations. Had I left them too? Was this the price for my negligence? Suddenly, a flash of light cut through the darkness, flickering like a dying star. I turned toward its source, desperate to escape the storm of shadows surrounding me. In the strange illumination, I caught sight of a door, a simple, wooden construct marred by time. It throbbed with a faint glow, beckoning me. "Mia, I can save you," I cried, bolstered by this thread of light, clinging to it as if it were a lifeline. I hitched my breath and fled toward the door, pushing through the Stygian shadows that clawed at my ankles, the whispers frantically crescendoing into howls of fury. Just as I reached a hand toward the knob, a shadow seized my wrist, the grip fierce and unyielding. "Where do you think you're going?" The voice chortled, a cacophony of lurching laughter resonating in my ear as the world began to spin. It was then that I felt the unmistakable warmth of Mia's familiar presence slipping farther away. I could almost see her, hovering just beyond reach, her silhouette flickering like a candle in intense wind. "Help me!" she screamed, the desperation lacing her words cutting me deeper than any blade. "Please, don't go, let her go." I howled, my spirit igniting with rage, and I wrenched my wrist free from the shadow's grip. But the darkness lunged at me, coiling around my legs as I tried to wrench the door open. It groaned ominously, refusing to yield, the lantern light behind it flickering dangerously. The shadows intensified, engulfing me in a whirlpool of hate and sorrow, whispering vivid insistences of betrayal that chilled my blood. I couldn't shake the feeling that turning away meant abandoning her forever, yet each pulse of the shadows whispered darker designs, urging me to succumb. "Do not pursue that which doesn't want to be saved," they hissed, a chilling premonition of terrible truth. As I finally managed to wrench the door ajar, a blinding light burst forth, illuminating everything in a kaleidoscope of horrific color, a world where everything was too vivid, too alive. But my decision hung beguilingly before me, endless paths diverging from that door. As a horrific scream pierced through the cacophony, echoing Mia's voice broken with fear and anger, I realized I didn't know which path would lead me to her. "Mia!" I shouted desperately, torn between the unpredictable void behind me and the promising chamber beyond the door. And in that maddening moment, my choice solidified. With the darkness clawing at my back, I launched myself through the door, heart racing, hope stark against despair. But the moment I crossed the threshold, all sound fell away, and I was met with a chilling void. Silence enveloped me too completely. I spun around, and the door slammed shut, sealing forever my escape. In that silence, 1,000 echoes began to surge within the void. Whispered secrets moaned around me, and from the stillness came a thumping sound, a familiar pulse that grew closer and closer. "It's just a game," Mia's voice echoed hollowly, but a twisted mirth emphasized the words. Wood scraping against wood behind me, then came the echo of something else, just beyond the reaching darkness, a sound that chilled me to my very soul, the unmistakable gurgling laughter of children. Rising like a tide of inevitable doom behind me, something, or someone, scraped against the door slowly, as if it had no intention of letting me go. The oppressive silence pressed down on me like the weight of a leaden sky. I spun around, heart racing, staring at the now closed door, which had sealed off the world I had just escaped. Inside, I could still feel the presence of the shadows lurking, whispering sweet horrors that polluted the very air. But here, I stood alone with the promises broken and the laughter that echoed through the darkness. "Mia!" My voice broke, hoarse and desperate, swallowed by the void. I strained my ears, hoping to catch just a hint of her familiar tones amidst the encroaching sound. "Can you hear me?" The laughter tickled the edges of my mind again, children's laughter layered with a malicious tone that churned my stomach. It was a sound I knew too well, yet it twisted the memories of joy into something sinister, a barbed echo from a time I desperately wanted to forget. Suddenly, a shudder ripped through the ground beneath me. My feet unsteady, I stumbled back, eyes darting around the shadowy expanse. The air thickened, charged with an unseen energy, while the thumping grew louder, a dull and rhythmic sound that resonated with a heartbeat that I pressed my back against the door, seeking its solidity, which now seemed menacing and cold. But the thumping persisted, so relentless, puncturing the suffocating stillness like a serrated knife. There was something alive behind that wood, something that recognized my presence and wanted me to know it was waiting. A sliver of dread wormed its way through my thoughts. I turned back toward the void, feeling a fragile flicker of hope extinguishing within me. "I have to find her," I murmured, a mantra that felt hollow but steeled my resolve. But as I stepped forward, clouding myself in shadows, glimmers of distorted faces began appearing again through the murk, all contorted in expressions of pleading and despair. They surged at the edges of the light, and with each flicker, every anguished visage emitted hollow cries, echoes of loss that wrapped around my heart like iron chains. Every face held an accusation, a sorrowful gaze that pierced through my core, asking, pleading why I hadn't saved them. As I drew nearer, the laughter erupted into wild cackles, and, instinctively, I stumbled backward, the chill wrapping around my spine like skeletal fingers. From within the tenebrous crevice, a faint glow emerged, a string of warmth underlying the pervasive cold, luring me forward. It pulsed rhythmically, the same tempo as the thumping. Mia. I gasped, the words slipping from my lips like a desperate prayer. I focused on the scintillating light, willing myself toward it despite the rising chorus of anguish pulling me back. The shadows writhed around me, thick and clingy. Just as I stepped into the light, a piercing scream erupted me name, reverberating off unseen walls with raw fury. It shattered the laughter, the shadows recoiling just for a moment like a tide pulled from the shore. Mia. I cried again, even louder, as if sheer force of will could conjure her from the void. The thumping halted abruptly, leaving only the heart-stopping echo of my own breath, "Don't leave me." The softened desperation in her voice shattered through the remnants of laughter, conjuring vivid memories of happier times, summers spent in the sun and laughter that rang like a bell. I'm trapped here. The weight of the shadows hung heavy, a reminder of her torment as my memories intertwined with her pleas. Suddenly, from deeper within the abyss, a shadow raced forth, darting like a serpent with sinister intent. I could almost glimpse what it would reveal, a form, familiar yet distorted, clawing at me with desperate speed. "Help me, please!" It shrieked, fragments of her initial plea strewn with agony. "You can still save me." In that moment, I was caught in a violent web of emotion. Horror curled within my gut as the voice warped once more into something less human, something unrecognizable. An overwhelming urge to flee surged within me, battling against the instinct to reach for her. But before I could act, the door behind me bucked violently, as though something on the other side was trying to claw its way out to me. Splinters flew into the air, sending shards of fear slicing through my body as I spun back to face it. All at once, the gurgling laughter saturated my ears, bursting forth from the crevices of the doorframe, tainting my thoughts with whispers of unseen children playing a malevolent game that muddied my judgment and choked any promise of salvation. "Join us," they beckoned, their voices a malicious symphony of childish glee, blurring into a cacophony of shrill pleasure. "Come play forever," and just as my heart began to race with primal instinct, the door burst open, splintering wildly as a figure blurred into view shrouded in darkness. A grotesque parody of innocence stood before me. I stumbled back, and there, in that moment of horror frozen in time, I met with each pair of wide eyes glinting with an insatiable hunger, mouths twisted in vicious glee, waiting for my decision. In the pounding silence, my heart sank as a low, rasping voice whispered toward me, aching and familiar, "You'll lose me forever if you don't choose." The shadows beckoned, the figures closing in, and behind me, the light flickered uncertainly as Mia's plea echoed in strident terror echoing across the infinite night. I stood there, paralyzed by dread, as the dark figures moved in to rush forward, their laughter a crescendo of chaos that promised to raze all hope to the ground. And in the next breath, I would have to choose. My heart ached with the weight of my decision as the darkness surged forward, closing the distance. The laughter surged, a tidal wave of grotesque joy that threatened to drown me. I felt the shadows twist around my ankles, dragging me toward them, their laughter some malevolent hymn, invoking memories of laughter that once brought me comfort. But now it felt like a sacrilege, a mockery of love and innocence. "Mia!" I shouted again, my voice trembling, pleading through the maelstrom of torment. The figures before me distorted, elongating and bending unnaturally, their small frames shifting as they snickered, their laughter mingling with the raspy whispers. It was as if they were feeding on my fear, the hunger in their eyes deepening with every syllable of my name. I cried out, their eyes were wells of darkness, a swirling void that reflected nothing of the warmth that once resided in Mia's gaze. They danced closer, shadows swaying and undulating like a macabre performance, as if they thrived on my dread, each step forward drawing me deeper into their monstrous realm. Each laugh twisted the knife in my heart. "You left us behind," they chorused, their voices merging into a haunting echo, a pitiful accusation. You abandoned us. A chorus of faces flickered into view, each one a reflection of Mia's innocence mixed with anguish, each voice an echo of the children I had failed to protect. Please. I can save you, I cried, desperation clawing at my throat as I glanced over my shoulder. The light pulsed weakly, a dying star screaming for life, and I took a step back, torn between two realms. Behind me, shadows loomed, and I could feel their cold breath at my nape, each second stretching into eternity as I weighed my options. The air crackled with tension, a thickening fog of dread that swallowed my breath and turned my stomach. I caught a glimpse of their tiny fingers curling into claws, each twisted grin a testament to their twisted joy. Join us. They taunted, their voice dripping with mockery. Feel what we feel, and then it hit me, a rush of memories, flooding my mind like a grotesque slideshow. The joyous laughter of Mia, her small hand slipping from mine, the hidden door behind the basement that had beckoned her away like a siren song. I had thought I could protect her from whatever darkness lingered there, I had thought our home was safe. In the center of their whirlwind of chaos, still in that fleeting light, Mia's face emerged again, pale, fragile, and a mirror of astonishment. They are lying. She shrieked, her voice trembling with urgency. Don't believe them. They will devour you. The shadows lurched at her words, their glee faltering for a moment, eyes narrowing. You can't save her, they hissed, the plea falling from their parched lips like venom. She's ours now. Choose quickly, or shall be lost forever. Panic gripped me, tightening like a vice. I reached for Mia, wishing to break through the twisted veils of darkness separating us. I could sense the pull of the abyss behind me, heard the cackling merge with the heartbeat of the world slumbering beyond the veil. Each second that passed widened the chasm between us, separating two lives entwined by fate. The laughter crescendoed, a fierce mocking that throbbed in my ears as if the very fabric of the world were tearing apart. As I teetered between decisions, the ground beneath me trembled violently, and the shadows laughed, a sound that felt like a fracture splitting reality itself. Suddenly, a far-off scream pierced through the chaos, not Mia's, but a grating shriek from beneath. The sound reverberated like thunder, shaking the ground and unleashing a wave of darkness that crashed against me. Make your choice. Shrieked a tiny voice, transforming from playful glee to accusative rage as its owners darted closer, reaching for my shoulders with claws that mirrored my worst nightmares. Abruptly, the figures recoiled, their faces twisting in panic as a gargantuan shadow loomed behind me, a monstrous silhouette emerging from the depths of the void, dark and unspeakable. I turned, heart in my throat, feeling the oppressive weight of pure malice pouring forth from the cleaving darkness. Time slowed as I realized this new horror was not merely an apparition, it was something alive, something that pulsed with ancient vengeful rage, descending upon me like the wrath of a forgotten god. Choose. Echoed Mia's voice, fragile yet urgent, a tether fraying under the unbearable pressure of that looming despair. The monstrosity surged forward, a flood of darkness that threatened to extinguish everything in its path. The shadows squealed like frightened mice, retreating in fear. I was frozen, suspended within the clamor of cruelty and innocence as the abyss encroached, threatening to swallow us whole, and in that final moment a decision needed to be made. The shadows shrieked, and the gargantuan presence reached out, grasping for the remnants of my soul. I gasped as darkness swallowed me whole, the weight of uncertainty closing in, and with a haunting realization, I understood whatever I'd chosen would threaten to unearth a dark reality far spookier than the one I had faced already. The world dimmed, and the last thing I heard was the distant echo of Mia's voice fading into the void. Don't let them take you. And then, silence. When I woke, I was back in the attic, the familiar whispers now laced with an anxious thrill. Reality felt warped, like staring into a cracked mirror reflecting unspeakable horrors. The walls pulsed softly, and the air was thick with the scent of damp rot, but the swirling shadows that had once clawed at me were gone. Perhaps they had retreated, waiting and watching for their chance to strike again. Yet, behind that fragile veil of calm lay an unease that prickled my skin. Mia. I called out, my voice thin and wavering. The word hung heavily in the air, echoing into the oppressive silence. My heart raced with each passing second, hammering against my ribs as I strained to hear an answer. For a moment, the laughter returned, soft and ghostly yet carrying an unmistakable weight, a cacophony of lost innocence dancing close to the edges of memory, but then, suddenly, everything fell silent. Like curtains drawn across the theater of horrors, the room dimmed, swallowed by an inky blackness that crawled over the floor. Panic surged within me again as memories began to coalesce, ephemeral images flickering like candle flames, moments from my childhood, echoing laughter, and the fleeting warmth of sunflower-splashed afternoons. That a daunting realization clawed at the edges of my mind: Mia was here. Despite the grip of fear solidifying around my heart, I sensed her. They had taken her, yes, but she was still alive, lingering within the limbs of despair. But so were they, the shadows that lay hungry and watchful, ever eager for the taste of pain and sorrow to feed their insatiable hunger. Still, I pressed forward, soaking up the memories of laughter and love, searching through them like a lifeline pulled taut. "Mia, where are you?" I demanded, heart racing as echoes of the abyss wrapped around me, drawing me deeper into their bitter caresses. The attic walls felt alive, whispers swirling around me, caressing my skin with every remembered touch, and then I saw her, a flickering shape crouched against the far wall, weaving in and out of shadows like a moth caught in a storm. "Mia!" I lunged forward, breathless, but the moment I took a step, the world shifted. The ground quaked beneath me, cracking open to reveal a yawning abyss, drawing me into impending doom. "No! Don't go!" Her voice broke through the swirling chaos, frantic and pleading, cutting through the shadows like a beacon. "Help me!" But then it morphed, added spinning edges of misunderstanding, desperation forgotten, her essence twining into the shadows. I felt the unseen force coil around me, grasping every inch of my resolve. "Stay away!" I screamed into the darkness, but the shadows writhed eagerly, taunting me. They pulsed with maddening mirth, and I could hear the distant echo of children's laughter, genuinely joyful, but twisted into something grotesque. "Mia, please!" I sobbed, catching glimpses of her face, one moment tender, emerging cheerfully from distinct memories, the next, aging, adorned in darkness with those same familiar eyes blanketed by empty dread. "You have to remember who you are," but the moment hung heavy, and in a disjointed heartbeat, I saw the hall of smiles morph into darkness, swirling faces clawing for me, gnashing teeth glimmering against the abyss. Then, clarity shimmered through me like a fleeting spark igniting embers. This was all a trap, designed to break me. They wanted me to surrender to despair, to relinquish every shred of light I clung to, leaving me as nothing more than a shadow, a vessel, as Mia had said. "Not again," I croaked resolutely, as the figures lunged. With every ounce of strength, I dived toward Mia's flickering silhouette, reaching desperately into darkness. "I won't give up. We'll face this together." In that infinitesimal moment of furious determination, her eyes locked onto mine, revealing vulnerability beneath layers of twisted shadows. I surged forward, arms outstretched, feeling the warmth of shared memories tethering us to that dream of redemption even amidst the encroaching void. The shadows shrieked, a pained sound weaving into the fabric of reality as I collided with her, a shuddering embrace against which the darkness recoiled. White-hot tendrils snagged around us, yet our joined hands illuminated the connection between us, the brilliance slicing through the encroaching dark like a blade. "Mia!" I shouted again, more fiercely this time. "Fight it! Remember us! Remember who we are!" It felt as though time dripped in languorous agony, every second stretching beneath the weight of the darkness trying to tear us apart. But within the abyss, her eyes flickered, fields of uncertainty swirling, desperately battling the grasping shadows. The malignant laughter grew frantic, reaching in to consume her despair. And then, with a piercing cry that struck through the earlier mirth, she broke free. She came alive, illuminating the deadened space around us, casting the shadows into confusion. "You're right!" she exclaimed triumphantly, her smile blooming once more, warmth rushing back into her features. "We're together." And in that triumphant reality, the darkness shuddered violently, fragments of it peeling away like layers of skin revealing something ugly beneath. The shadows began to rip and tear under the weight of our defiance, flinging out echoes of accusations, the voices a cacophony building in fury. "We'll never let you forget. They screamed, and I finally understood, I had indeed opened the door. And as the shadows fled, their laughter diminishing into ghostly echoes, I turned to face the door that had once sealed us away, realizing then that it had never been merely a threshold, it was a torment bound to the heart of the house, part of us, part of our twisted legacy. Together, gripping each other's hands, we plunged into that familiar light, the warmth shredding through our shattered expectations. But as we stepped through, I caught a flicker in the encroaching shadows, specifically the door, still seeming to pulse. As we emerged into the morning light, a sense of relief swelled within my chest until I realized with icy horror, that the house was still alive, that we were free. I whispered, a question lingering on the horizon of understanding that clawed at my mind. But shadows collected around us like tendrils of smoke, lapping hungrily as memories branched woman and child into the past. The chills settled deep in my bones, suffocating me beneath nostalgia I could taste vividly. A silence cloaked me in unease. No, I murmured, only for the shadows to erupt into laughter again, enveloping my surroundings. You didn't think a simple escape would free you forever, did you? And then the house whispered the last truth to me, one binding in its terrifying resonance. The cycle always began anew, luring someone into its depths. That I, in that moment of understanding, dread coursed through my veins as icy hands gripped my heart, and I knew I could never escape what I had awakened. The shadows didn't leave us. They lingered in the corners of memory, laughing, waiting for the next moment I would find myself drawn back to open the door once more. As I stood there, realization etched into my very being. I felt the house meld with a dark and sinister alliance I could not break. The laughter echoed around me, feral and unyielding, and I understood all too well, the horror was just beginning, and I would never truly be free, for I was part of the darkness now, as it was a part of me, and the door. Oh, it would always be open.